I'd like to thank the council for letting me attend your meeting tonight. I'm Dave Byrne. I'm from O'Connell County, and I'm coming to your town to see if you could share, and we can share with you, the same frustrations that the small towns have with the industrial solar. Now, the small-time solar is fantastic. If you want to put solar on your town hall, you want to put it on your fire department, you want to put it on your schools, that's great. Now, when you come to the farmland fields, there's a question there for conservation, but you must keep in mind that the farmer's land is their investment to their retirement, and they have a right to that. And that has to be understood before you say that the farmer's wrong. But the company that comes to your town, that's where I have a lot of questions. As I attend other towns, I see the same occurrence where what we call the land sharks, they come into your town, they don't ask you about the permits, they don't ask you about the variances, they don't ask you about the conditional uses that are taking place out there. They don't tell you about the environment. They don't tell you about the ecosystem. They say they don't have to tell you anything. Now, as the towns demand they want information, they are told nothing. So then it goes back to your county courthouse. Now, your county courthouse may have had meetings, but do they share that with you, the people? No. Anybody on this council in other towns, do they hear what's going on? No, they don't. But speaking to other representatives are real shy to talk, I'll say it that way. Not that they don't want to, but if they do speak up, they could get disciplined themselves. So in the light of solar coming into an area, they make the promises of, they give your town a number. And let's go with 100,000 because that's a small number for them. And they're going to say, well, 1,000 acres. Well, the politicians are going to push to have the development pushed up over 1,000 acres right away, and they wanted to go at over 1.5 to 2 million solar panels right away on that farmland, and they're going to promise you all this money. Up here in the snow belt, what they don't tell you is that that solar panel automatically gets depreciated, and hypothetically in the lab, under perfect conditions, down in Florida, South America, that panel puts out 100%. Up here in the snow belt, it puts out 20%. So on that money that you're promised, start taking the money away. So you lose 20% of it every dollar. And when you get up to $100,000, $200,000, $300,000, you're not guaranteed that. They're going to prorate it. Now they come into your county and they say, we're going to do all this stuff for you, and the tax money is going to be there for you. No, it's not. It's prorated. And then they come back to the state level and they'll say, we didn't meet our benchmark for what we were going to have for a net profit of generating solar electricity, and they're going to amateurize their taxes. Now they don't pay any taxes, and if there's a deficit, it comes back on you. As they keep building solar and wind up in this area, the efficiency goes down more and more and more, to the point where there's really nothing there. So in the subsidized monies, and you can look it up yourself, when solar and wind was first being invented back in the 80s, and they wrote some rules, but they didn't really dwell on it a lot, and it kind of went into a lull. It went into a low point, and nothing was said about it. Well, then they came along with the Net Zero Act, and they came along with the Inflation Act. I just forgot the word for 2022. And in here, they are going to subsidize the renewable energy. They don't tell you what the return on the investment is. There is very little to no return on investment. Who do they really clarify this with? They don't have to tell you. When the developers come into the town, they're going to say everything they can about the construction, but they don't tell you nothing about your town. And that's where my town came into a lot of discussion. The little towns and the governments are left out of every meeting, and as construction comes in, every town said the same thing. They update us when they finish it. You have no idea what they're going to build. You have no idea how they're going to build it. And then they get to the point they say, well, we are not a utility because we are developing on a farmland that is being leased. So it's still owned by the deed owner in your township, same as the other townships. when it gets finished as a developed renewable energy, the first thing they want to do is sell it. Now the contracts change. Now the agreement changes. Now you are in a different position financially. What are you going to pay for? Because they don't guarantee you the money up front. It gets prorated pretty much down to zero. Now, I spoke to, and I always tell people I'm not the legal person, but you can go on your cell phones and look up Grand Meadows, Minnesota. I was over there in September, and type in wind turbines. The renewable company over there said, we're going to come in, and they took the farmer with the biggest piece of land. On that contract with no legal counsel, that farmer was stuck with structure. And you think, well, this is a structure. But so is every item of solar and wind. That big pole, excuse me, that big pole is a structure. On that contract, it agreed to storage. Well, you think your parking lot is storage. No. You think of these farmers who are going to sign over 1,000 to 2,000 acres thinking they're going to get rich. What they wound up doing, instead of repowering the wind turbines in 15 years, they said, we're going to do it now. And they didn't go into the town and take those big blades off the turbine. They didn't go into the township and take the blades off the turbine. They didn't go to the county and take the blades off the turbine. It'd be like going from here to Menominee, Michigan, and take the blades off every turbine in that whole path of the grid, and they brought it back to that town. Well, the townspeople were getting upset, said, who's going to get this garbage out of our town, because we didn't ask for it. But I said in the beginning, these developing companies don't have to tell you nothing. It goes through the senators. We had rules and regulations, but not laws, back in the 80s. They were never updated, and they're not being updated now. So they're saying that when the senators push for a project to be over 1,000 acres, 2,000 acres, over 1.5 million to 2 million solar panels, they're taking rules that are based on the 1980s. There's nothing here saying in those rules that include our voice. We don't have a voice, we don't have a vote, and they say you're just a political subdivision and you'll do as we say. The way my town got wind of it was they made a donation to the fire department. We had just did the budget. There was no fire department in the budget. We found out that the 501c3 was dissolved and rewritten under another name. That was part of the solar buy-in. And this opened a whole new door of searching. So when we started out talking, like I'm talking to you, we were totally illiterate as to what was happening. We didn't even know how to start this conversation. But we educated each other. And we go out to towns, we go out to the town unit meetings like you mentioned here with Delta County. And we just spread out. So I'm one of these people. I pulled out of retirement. I said, I'm not going to be a yes person. I dig in, I meet people, I talk to people, I talk to senators. Last Tuesday I was talking to lobbyists. They were interested that I was kind of aggressive the way I was. I said, there's nothing written for the people. And the way it is right now, the developer who can go through the lobbyists with the money, they don't want us to have a voice. They don't want us to have a vote. Now, when we come into the incentive monies, I was wondering how the Inflation Reduction Act can bring that money up. But if there's what they call the stakeholders or the special investors, I looked into that. I knew there was a word out there called ESG, and for the last couple of years I could never say it, but now I can. It's environmental social governance. If that is attached to a renewable energy project, it's a different type of management. But if you want to look it up, write it down. Cheryl Atkinson, she's the news reporter, and look up the word woke. It's a YouTube. She was talking to the CEO of this ESG. There's an office in New York and an office in Washington State, and they can come in with a little corrupt money to push an energy project into your town. Now, there was another one there where it backs up to the United Nations, and I didn't want to talk about that one either, but it was called International Monetary Funding. A little bit more nasty people with money, and they want their payment back. But you can look that one up too under Cheryl Atkinson, and she does one-on-one reports. The one gentleman who was the CEO didn't want to talk too much, and you'll see it if you look that stuff up. But she gets a hold of the secretary. The secretary says a little too much, and they get right into this renewable energy that is called green energy. There's nothing green about renewable energy. It is the most environmentally destructive thing that you cannot return farmland back to. Once you destroy a farm field, it's gone. Now, down where I live, we got some farm areas that are going over 3,000 acres. Our question is, where did all these miles of perfect topsoil go? You can't bring it back because they're supposed to reclaim it. When I was talking to Minnesota, I said, what do you do out here with your structures and your leftover materials? They said, we recycle what we can, we salvage what we can, and the rest of it, we like to bury it. I said, well, how do you bury it? You're supposed to reclaim the farmland. Well, in Minnesota, as long as it's 4 feet under the grass, it's considered reclaimed farmland. In Wisconsin, if it's 3 feet under the land, it's considered reclaimed farmland. I don't know what the rules are for Michigan. That's homework. So what I say is not law. It's not, this is homework. You can go look it up, read it for yourself, make your own interpretation. But this is the way the people get treated. So they wonder why the people are frustrated. And the politicians are afraid to talk. They're leaving it up to us. Now, what happened out in Minnesota, once the lawsuit started, the developer for the renewable energy said, well, we contracted it out. That person contracted it out. That person contracted it out. Then the town sued. Now it became legal. They said, we don't get involved with legal. The whole thing fell onto the town. In a small town like yours, like a small town like mine, we can't afford lawyers. And this snowball rolls. So now, if something happens, in my town, they just did find a farmer who would sell 20 acres for the lithium battery. Each lithium battery is about the size of an enclosed semi-trailer. So we're going to get 20 acres of those. When California was having their fire, I start calling around the country to these towns that were having fires with lithium batteries saying, if you have to evacuate your home for 5 days to a week or longer, and you come back to your home and your home has a ill environment, it is not health friendly, who is going to take care of your home? Most of the insurance companies, I went right down to 800 numbers across the country, and they said, any mechanical, chemical, generated environment is not going to be paid for by the insurance company, which means you're on the hook because your homeowner's insurance isn't going to pay for your house. One company did say, we do give a stipend to stay in a hotel for up to 2 years. They said, well, then who can go back to the home and repair? Well, that's up to the homeowner. Palestine, Ohio, with the derailed train, they're still fighting to get their rights because it was not spelled out. And at that time, the senators did not want to spell it out. And so this is where the people have to come to a voice and tell our senators, we do want a voice. And they're saying, well, this person is going to be left alone and they're going to be allowed to build, but who's going to pay for our property? Who's going to pay for our losses? Then the question was, well, if that smoke with the heavy metals in it goes into the barn, oh, we never thought of that. And so I called the insurance commissioner for the state of Wisconsin. He said, well, who are you going to call out? And I said, you. And he didn't talk to me anymore. And so there if it goes into the barn, who's going to pay for the barn? Who's going to pay for the cattle? Who's going to pay for the loss of product? There's no answer yet. It falls back onto you. So as we as a people, because there's no rules written to protect us, we are left on the hook. And the only way the word gets out is if we get, like what I'm doing, educating. I'm talking to you. I hope you talk to me. I'm open for questions. I'm open for sarcasm. I get a lot of it. But there are people who understand what the politics of green energy is. There are people who are totally benign because they think green energy is supposed to be so green. But it's one of the most expensive things that we have out there. And because we have northern Michigan just up the road, and University of Wisconsin, about 300 miles from here, I spend time there. Pay attention to, it's called bromine nuclear reactor or liquid metal cooled reactor. I love it. In this region of the country, we have enough nuclear waste laying around that can, about the size of a football field, about 30 feet high. With the new fusion that they're talking about, that they just harnessed, we can make a new energy, reburn that nasty radioactive material that has a 175,000 year half-life. We can reburn it down to the consistency that fits into a coffee can, and it'll have the nuclear exposure equal to a medical grade radiation. Now picture one trailer with a little nuclear reactor can go down to Milwaukee and plug into the city for free for 75 years. 2 trailers could run the city of Detroit. And this is moving real slow because, quote the words from the green energy people that talk to my town, well, that would hurt our bottom line. Well, they don't have a bottom line because we subsidize everything. Then they don't pay taxes because they amortize everything. And then in the end, they're not stuck with the expenses to clean it up because they leave it for us. Any questions out there? I'm open to sarcasm, I'm open to complaints, and I'm open to curiosity.
I'd like your phone number, please.
My phone number is, please call me. My home number is 920-848-2028. And if you get a recording that sounds like artificial intelligence, no, that's just the way I talk. But I do encourage people to talk to me. You're not alone, I'm not alone. We cover about a 500-mile radius right now. Because what the people that I talk to, let's take it from the Hiawatha National Forest down to Sheboygan, Wisconsin, west over to Platteville, Wisconsin, Du Bois, Iowa, back up the Mississippi River to Wausau, Wisconsin. I cut across over to Munising. These are the people that I talk to in the same language that I'm talking to you. But the statutes are not written for us to have a voice.
We do have something written for the voice of the people. We do.
Oh, my town did it too.
No, the Constitution, state Constitution.
Your state has something?
We have every state has a Constitution.
What they did in some states, and
they just ignore it.
They ignore it, but then they take the farm preservation and they want you to get rid of it. And one person in a farm preservation group has to pull out. Now the farm preservation doesn't work in that part of your township. Then when the farm preservation is gone, then these people can come through with the development, and because they're saying they are not an energy manufacturing entity, they're bypassing a lot of the permitting processes with the variances and the conditional use permits. But then when they sell it, now it goes to a licensed utility and a licensed utility operator, and those other rules, well, we already built it this far, we might as well rubber stamp it through, and the cost still falls onto you. So
it's nice that you came by here, or in wherever you're going, really, all those places, because nobody's sticking up for the farmers, because the farmers are going to destroy their own land.
They will. Down by middle of Wisconsin, a gentleman called me and says, you got to take a ride down. So it's about 250 miles south of here. They took a 40-acre of land, dug off 30 feet of the topsoil in the earth, down to the bedrock, to put in what they're experimenting with a CO2 battery. And yes, the battery works, but 98% of the energy that the battery creates goes back into the battery, so there's only 2% of market, which that's lost with inflation. And the expense goes back onto that township. So any questions out there? Anything you want to share?
I want to ask, can you tell us where you're getting this information from? Where can we go and find this information?
The information that I get is from talking with the developer that came into my town. So if there's a developer coming into your town, they will try to put you on the spot and avoid the questions. Put them in the corner. Put them in a question that's going to hold accountability. And
so everything you told us up there, you're saying you got from a developer.
Mm-hmm. And what if you notice what I'm talking about here, I did not use a single name, because then I could be caught on slander, I could be caught on defamation. But who's ever coming to your area, ask them. Put them on the spot. If you have legal counsel, ask them, what are your rights? So the developer coming in to my area, I spoke to them about 3 weeks ago, and I said, okay, they're talking about having community solar. And the community solar developers, where they take like 40 acres that it's supposed to be for your town, that's still very expensive. But if we're already going to have over 1.5 million solar panels, why do we want another 10,000? And my question was that if you make solar electricity here, because it's only a mile down the road from my house, how much of that solar is for us, my town? None of it. Because we have a transfer station, a transfer substation, which is different from a distribution. A distribution substation is someplace in this area by the paper mill that supplies electricity to this building. A transmission station is bigger. They're enclosed with cement. They send electricity all over the country in Canada. So if you are going to have solar here, and they're going to put it on the auction block for bids, the utility across the country that bids the most money, MISO flips a switch, and that electricity takes off to that part of the country. It could go to New York, it could go to San Diego, San Francisco, it could go to any place in Canada, but you don't get it here. But if there's an expense to it, and there is, it comes to your utility, it comes to your bill every month. And like down by me, we are quickly becoming one of the most expensive electrical utility regions of the United States because of our cold weather. And down by me, we just had a proclamation here about 2 months ago because they wanted us to take it easy on natural gas. They took it all away because renewable energy was supposed to supply our homes. And with the cold weather, the solar panels weren't working, the wind turbines weren't working, so you're getting low on electricity. And with the wires available, we couldn't bring any more in. And the East Coast went through that same dilemma, and industry left the East Coast and they were coming to the Midwest. Now that these companies will say, well, maybe it's better we go back down to Texas and just take our chances. Any other questions? Yes.
Who invited you to this meeting tonight?
What I did, I heard about towns that were having issues, and I was looking to see who was going to have town meetings coming up that I could make time to be at them, so I called.
Okay.
And now I have to be accepted to come. I can't just walk in and take the floor.
Okay. Now, are you involved in your township? You're the supervisor. Are you involved in that township?
Okay. I'm a supervisor, but I'm not here as a supervisor. I can't do that. Okay. I'm not wearing my badge. I'm having no identity.
Involved in that lawsuit against what Governor Whitmer passed last year?
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
From the state.
Are there lawsuits out there? Some towns are trying to do it, but they don't have the money to do it.
Okay. And another thing, like you were saying about the topsoil not being used anymore after 30 years of solar panels. Do you have any proof of that?
You can go down to all, I'm from Wisconsin, take a ride to all of them and find out where the topsoil went. They brought in the backfill, they came in with the fitness, they came in with the gravel, they came in with the sand, they packed it down, they drilled the holes, put the pylons in, and I asked our state capitol, where did our topsoil go? There is no answer. They don't want to talk about it.
Are you aware of this solar project that's going on in St. Nicholas?
St. Nicholas, over...
North of here.
No, I'm not aware of that one, no.
Okay, what they did, they pushed all the topsoil off and put it in piles.
They're supposed to, yes.
Where the roads are?
Yes. Make a
When
berm.
they're done, 30 years from now, they're going to remove all them solar panels and that topsoil will all
Yes.
go back.
We don't have that.
They put in.
Yeah, they brought in dirt. The topsoil disappeared, and they brought in dirt.
They pushed the topsoil in piles. It's all still sitting there.
That's what they're supposed to do. Down where I live, they didn't do that.
Okay, but now, where you live is totally different than where we live.
Laws can change from state to state. As a matter of fact, Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota shares a lot of the same legislation, and they'll change a few words and enforce a few different things differently, but in many ways we're alike in many, many ways.
You can say that, but you have no proof of that.
You can read it.
Yeah, you can read it, but is it true?
Well, it's written into a state statute
Okay.
or a county ordinance. You can read it. That's why I always say, do your homework. I'm not the lawyer. I'm not the legal person, but I read, and I tell people, here's where you can read it. Write it down, go look for it,
That's what I
make
was-
your own interpretation.
That's what I was asking you. Where did you get that information? You said talk to the developer, but
Yes.
where are you getting the information that you're telling us?
Exactly.
Where are you looking that up?
Oh,
at?
okay. When I speak to the developer, that's something you can't go back. That's the developer talking to us either in person or on a Zoom. So the developer down where in the region where I live, they are talking to us most of the time by Zoom. But do they meet with the government in person? That I don't know because we are not allowed to attend those meetings.
That's what I'm asking. Where are you getting your information to ask them those questions? And you're telling them they're lying to you or whatever.
Oh, the questions I'm asking?
Yes, where are you getting that information?
The questions I come up with, we are looking at other towns that have had their issues and legal problems. We are talking to the different representatives from those regions. Some are very open, some share more than others. And it's just getting on the phone. If you want to talk to Lansing, you want to talk to Madison, you want to talk to Des Moines, Iowa, talk to those people.
So whoever you're talking to, you're either taking their word for it?
If it's a representative for that, yes. And that's at the state level. Yeah.
Is there any science, any truth to it? That's what I'm getting.
We have, when it comes from out of the state capital, I have to accept them unless I can prove differently. And to prove differently, I'd have to have enough public available to prove it. So to prove something, we talk to a lot of people. And are we all sharing the same frustrations? Yes. Can we compare this? If they say, well, no, we didn't know anything about it. If you have an area of thousands and thousands of people saying the same thing, how can a representative say they didn't know anything about it when it's a repeated question again and again and again?
So where did you get your nuclear information?
My nuclear, I might have it with me. I might have it with me. That was the gentleman who gave it. I do have it. This was at the Madison Capitol. The gentleman, one of them was just phenomenal. He was a physicist, the scientist, the chemist, the engineer. He was talking about using hydrogen out of water to fly his 737 jets. He had a fleet of 5 under United Airlines. And at the end of his, a 40-minute presentation, he said, if you think I'm joking, I'm the pilot. I want to give that to Jeremy copies. Those are the 3 new energies.
I'd like a copy of that too.
And,
I'll make copies of them.
and those companies, one moved down to Florida. The one on sugars, because they don't care about corn, it's not strong enough for ethanol. They're using sugars like from when you have a scrap pile at the dump. They want those sugars, and they're describing how they can get the entropies out of them. And there again, these people are just phenomenal geniuses that they could even think of it. But those are energies for the future. And then in there's also hydrogen. Hydrogen is, they say it's expensive, but if you follow the new studies at the universities, and Lower Michigan is doing a lot on it, follow hydrogen. It's a very promising direction that it's a very promising direction that energy is going. If the bureaucrats don't get in the way, I hope we won't go in that direction. But right now, because we're falling behind in electricity, and we want to use up some of this nuclear waste in the country, this micro reactor is, I embrace it. And it's the discussion of a lot of agendas out there in the country. Any other questions? So that's a good one. Go ahead.
Have you ever been a dairy farmer?
Yes. My family was dairy farming with a relation, all that, up to about probably the late 70s, early 80s.
What happened?
The profit just wasn't there anymore. And
There you go.
Yep.
There you
And
go.
their farm was their retirement.
So now we have retirement.
Mm-hmm.
In this township, we've been fighting it for 8 years, and they just keep. Master plan mentioned solar 6 different times in the master plan. They're redoing the master plan and don't mention one thing in solar. So what does that tell you? And then you show up here tonight.
Mm-hmm.
One of these board members had to invite you here or something.
Who wants to claim? I called and I asked if it was okay to be here. I cannot walk into any town hall meeting and just take the floor. If I do take the floor, I have to identify myself and be recognized.
Okay.
So here tonight, I am being recognized to be present. Now, if you don't want me to be recognized, I'll take my seat and not stay anymore.
No, I'm just asking you typical questions that I'm curious about. Is that fair?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Here's a question.
Question, ma'am.
A lot of, you were talking about the laws that are old, like from the 80s that haven't been redone. Do you know, is there any, I don't know what it would be called, organized groups of people, I'm sure not politicians, that are looking into changing these laws or making laws so
Coalition?
that won't be done?
grassroots people,
Are they not aware it's happening? So no one's looking
it seems
into
like it's every other town. It seems like it's every other town, and these people, just like here, are frustrated. Who can we talk to? Who's going to listen to us? And the people themselves cannot afford a lawyer, so they're left. And now because they're not being told the truth to their questions, frustration builds up, towns are divided, families are fighting internally, and it just gets worse and
Described
worse.
this perfectly, right?
If the renewable energy just came out front, they were clean in their presentation, if the whole thing was open to the public, if there was a voice and a vote, this frustration wouldn't be here. Go ahead. You jump in the middle. You just raised his hand.
Have you, I'm sorry about that, sir. I didn't see you raise your hand.
You've thrown so much out here that instead of clarifying the picture, you've made it a lot more confusing.
It is very technical. All of it is.
You bounced in a whole lot of different
Yes, I
areas.
did. I covered what I've learned in years. I just said it in about 15 minutes.
Apparently, being that you're from Wisconsin, they must have a whole different contractual basis that they use, because most of what you've talked about they're hiding this and hiding that, it's not the factual piece whatsoever on what's taking place in this township.
And if that's the truth, then you're lucky.
No, it is the truth.
No, it ain't the truth.
Here. And even this township has had a ad hoc committee, which Lori was on here, and it was accepted. And as far as you've said that electricity, as far as wind and solar are very expensive, have to be subsidized, that has not been proven to be a fact either. But if you look at the wholesale cost of electricity, which was in this study, it was national charts that were put forth. I don't have the book with me to give you the exact what it is, that the lowest cost of wholesale electricity in this nation is from wind and solar. And it's been that way for a number of years. Also, the highest cost of electricity is from solar. And that is solar on buildings and yards. By far the highest cost of electricity wholesale.
Residential development is reached, even for my age, I can't do it. The cost of investment has no return, and is the development or the investment in it on my home or any of my buildings, can I transfer it over? The rules changed. It's weak enough, the rules are weak enough that I cannot invest in it. So the cost of return to build renewable energy when the end point is not spelled out, well, we'll let you know when it's done. In most of the little towns, that is the same story. They'll let you know when it's done. And it was spelled out in the beginning. There's a lot of reinforcement. Who's going to take charge? Which is, they go to this 1,000 acres, they go to the 150 megawatt. But anything past that, they say, well, the people don't have anything to say about it. And the people do have something to say about it. The reason the people are not recognized, the legislation's not there to recognize them. So they're not going to do it. And so as towns write up resolutions trying to protect themselves, they keep getting pushed a little bit further back. There's enough lobbying out there with enough clout and enough muscle that they're going to keep the towns in the dark.
This is why are you listening about keeping something in the dark? It appears that you keep going to this in the dark. The reality is that if you I've reviewed these contracts, and we're not in the dark. We've been very open about this all the way through. We've not said, we'll tell you later. It's always been up front. They sat here for a week in this town hall for the community to come in and look at the plan that they wanted to put in the community. They laid it all out, and they told them to pound sand. Now, you're saying that it's being hidden from you in Wisconsin and every other community is that way. That is not the case here. So it really boggles my mind that you.
I think I know where the division is there. Back in November, they did the same thing to my town. We went to the high school auditorium. The people came in, and the developer controlled the questions, and they controlled the answers. Anybody who raised their hand or stood up and spoke without being recognized were escorted out of the room. within the first minute, half the room was empty. And so, yeah, they did speak to the people, but it was in their controlled environment. The people could not ask the question in their own words. The people could not debate the answer in their own words. If they did, they were escorted out.
Well, you said that they were not recognized, and so they were escorted out. That's called point of order in a meeting.
Point of order.
All right, well, then, it's order, that's what we're having.
And that's where the people were frustrated, because their question was not being identified. It was being interpreted by the developer's own way of saying it. And the people would say, that's not what I'm trying to say. Okay, you're out of order, you're out of the room.
That has not been what's been put forth here whatsoever. So you know something in that you're relaying here has not been the facts here. So and you put
They've been lucky.
a tarnishing note as far as wind and solar is concerned, when that has not been the case. Yet in the presentation and what's taking place, we have a wind development farm in the Garden Peninsula that's doing very well. We have some solar, a small solar project in the Garden Peninsula as a part of this county, and another township is putting two townships where it's 100 megawatt going in. None of this that you're talking about has any relationship to fact or truth.
And what you said is true. What you said is true. Down by Milwaukee, there's a huge development down there of solar. That town loves it. That was their vote. They wanted it.
Whoa, wait a minute now. Okay, they wanted it.
Mm-hmm.
What's going on up here is private property. We should have to say what we want to do with our property.
That was private property too. It was farmland, whatever land, they're all combined together, whatever it does to make a
We've got 30 plus landowners up here that want to do this, and this township board and everybody else that's not involved in it are trying to kill it. So,
I have
where's
a
our property?
question. Mr. Behrend is here in order to just give information, not to be berated. He's just here to give us information, that's all.
Excuse
He
me.
doesn't
He asked for questions. So, shh.
But to answer you or not, he's been berating everything that's been presented here in this community.
Yep.
So you're saying the information,
he's here to
berating
answer,
information
he's
is
here to
okay
give us
from him,
information,
but
so.
the facts are not
you
okay
don't-
from us.
He's given us
That's
information.
'cause you guys want the
That's
solar.
all. He's just given us information.
But he said we could ask questions, Kim. So why
Not
can't we
the
ask
same
questions?
question 5
Why
times.
can't we ask questions?
You can ask a question, you don't have to ask the same question 5 times. He doesn't live in this area. He's
Exactly.
told
So
you
why is he
that.
here?
I'm generalizing the commonality of Reed Energy. It differs from township to township. And when I walk in, there's not yes and no. I always say there's 7 sides to every story. So there's your side in favor of, and then there's part of you who doesn't like it. Over here, there's another person who doesn't like the big solar, but they're in favor of something. That's 4. I'm in the middle, and I hear a little bit of this, and I hear a little bit of that. That's 6. I compromise it together, and I look for the commonality of a solution. What can everybody accept? And I try to find the problems, and I try to find the adversities, and I look for the common things that we can make it a good thing.
Now, if it's your property and you want to do that, why should a township be able to tell you, no, you can't do that?
Okay, Dave?
Someone say something?
Good now?
I'm good with everything.
Okay.
Yeah, I get the good, the bad, and the ugly, so I'm good with everything.
It's private property.
And that's the farmer's retirement.
Yes, exactly. I worked my whole life. I'm a 3rd generation farmer. Can't make a living mountain cows anymore. So,
It's hard.
and not only this, nobody here knows what kind of contract that all of us 30 landowners have signed. When they're done after the 30 years of solar, the contract we sign, they have to remove everything off our property. Boom. And we get our property back.
It
So
won't
30 years
happen.
from now, what do you think my property's gonna be worth?
You better read that. I'm
It's
not
going to
gonna
be
answer
worth
it.
nothing.
I've had a lawyer look at it for 6 months.
Okay, that's very legal.
Mr. Byron, I guess we're gonna end the conversation now.
I'm good. Shall I have my chair?
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me up
Thank
here.
you, Dave.
Item number F and G, Bob and Mr. Myron had their chance to talk, ask questions. I'm gonna
Well, you approved them to be on the agenda, you want to go up there?
Hi, my name is John Myron. Dave Barron over there was invited to this meeting. I'm assuming, not sure. Why are you laughing, Darby?
Because he told you.
okay, David.
He called here.
It's not, you can't respond. Keep your comments to
He comes up here, he's from Wisconsin. Has nothing to do with Michigan. Laws are totally different.
No.
And he's talking about private property. He's talking about topsoil being destroyed. Has no proof of it. None whatsoever. There is no proof of that at all. Actually, farmland that has been sitting vacant for 30 years is going to be the best farmland you're going to farm. Because there's no chemicals on it. There's no fertilizer on it. It's been sitting idle. If I could find a vacant field that hasn't been farmed in 30 years, I'd buy that and farm it in a heartbeat. Another thing, master plan. I was at the meeting. It was mentioned 6 times in the master plan. This township has done nothing but stop it. They voted in people that were against solar because they live right across the road from it. Us, as farmers, we pay the most taxes in this township. And you guys take our tax dollars and you spend it on lawyers. And then I just heard you guys sitting up here talking about where we're going to get money for this, where we're going to get money for that. You guys can get millions of dollars off the solar project, but because you live across the road from it, you don't want nothing to do with it. So you guys shouldn't even be on the board because you're not doing the best thing for the township residents. You're doing what you want yourself. And you guys think you can tell us what we can and can't do with our property? It's private property. You don't get that. You know how many dollars a year I pay in property taxes here. And you guys piss it away on attorneys to stop solar. So, my property, if I didn't put it in solar, then I'm not going to farm that no more. You know what I'm going to do? But this is good for the township because that's what they want. They want homes built all over that property. And then that property's done. It'll never be farmed again. If I put solar in there 30 years from now, you guys don't even know what kind of contract I've signed. You haven't seen it. You haven't heard it. You don't know nothing about it. And you're assuming all this stuff. I had an attorney look at this contract that I signed for 6 months and said, yeah, go ahead and sign it. And you guys are saying, oh, you're going to contaminate the groundwater. Do you think that company's going to come in here and contaminate the groundwater? Now we're talking about contaminating topsoil. It's just one thing after the other for the last 8 years to stop solar.
Thank you, John.
Bob Barron, not of the same spelling as the previous gentleman. It was so confusing in his presentation that those things are then presented that the politicians and everybody else is in cahoots on this. It's not something you're going to prove here, in this state at least. But I'm not sure what's going on in Wisconsin. I know a lot of developments are taking place. But just when the talking about there's no return on investment in solar, or approach is zero, and there's going to be deducts and whatever else. That's not what it states in the contracts that I've seen, and they're on a per acre basis. So unless that acre is disappearing, I don't think it's going to drop. So, but in we talked about Wisconsin, out of the University of Wisconsin, an acre of corn, taking the grain, will produce enough ethanol, average in the country, which is about 185 bushel per acre, will produce enough ethanol to run an E15 car for about 11,000 miles. Pretty good distance. The same acre will produce enough electricity to run an electric car for 715,000 miles. What we do in agriculture is capture solar energy. That's the reality. This gentleman said no to industrial solar. Industrial solar, if we eliminate industrial solar in our world, then we are eliminated. We live on solar. Without solar, this world is not going to function in a whole lot of different ways. And so the using of solar to capture electricity is just a continuation of what man's been doing for a long time. You talk about industrial solar. Billerud is 100% industrial solar. It could not exist without solar. So this board has, back in 22, I think it was, passed a resolution for a tax abatement for Billerud if they were to do this expansion. Didn't argue that, and that's when there were signs all over this township, or all over the Fly Rock area, no to industrial solar. Even some who hauled logs had it sitting out there by the logging truck. No to industrial solar, even though that's where they're making a living. So, and then to come up with these, this gentleman's on a mission, obviously, to come up with all these things that he says about it, when in fact, we've had the facts here. Your ad hoc committee had a series of questions that answered those. The report is in, and yet it's been thrown in the corner, and it's probably gathering dust someplace, even if you have one left. When in reality, it was these innuendos and questions were answered. This gentleman said, basically, where's our electricity? If it's produced here and it's transmitted out. Billerud produces far more material than we can handle here. So that attitude was brought up before on this board about that, well, we only want the amount produced that we're going to use in the township. Well, then are we going to have our own gas stations? Are we going to have our own grocery stores? Are we going to have our own little miniature paper mill? We're going to send a couple of guys with some woodchucks and axes and go out in the middle of a forested area, chop up some trees, have the woodchucks chew them up, and then make the paper that we need for the township. This is ridiculous. Things are produced in parts of the world that are needed in other parts of the world. It's called commerce. I know it's a phenomenal thing, or it's a novel concept, but that's how it works. One area has an excess of it. The copper country was called the copper country because it produced a lot of copper. But it didn't produce it just for what the copper country needed. It produced for what was needed in the market. Right now we have Eagle Mine up in by Big Bay is the only nickel producing mine in the United States. We should shut it down with the attitude that we hear here. Is that because it should only produce the amount of nickel needed in Marquette County. And that's the absurdity that we've had going on for a number of years. And people got in office specifically to stop solar any way and anyhow they could. And that's exactly what they've been doing. But they're not just stopping solar. They're taking away people's property rights. As evidenced by, to get a zoning change in this township, you have to come before and do the steps that are there. Then you're told we can't make the zoning change. And this happened to myself and Barron Farms, and we've requested this a number of times now, that we can't make, we will not change your zoning because we want your property reserved for housing. Well, that is taking my property rights. And when you take something from someone that is not theirs, without their permission, that's the basic definition of a thief. You're taking people's property rights. This is a property rights issue. Apparently, and I apologize to Ann. Ann has not been involved in it, but the rest of you have. And Anna, I do not direct this at you, because you have not been a participant in this type of stuff. The rest have, and we're going to stop people that we don't like in any way we can. The only reason is, well, we want to save that land for development. It's not your land to save. I don't see the township stepping up and saying, we want to save your land, and let's go pay the market price for that land as it could be used its highest use. The township's not doing that. Not the members of the board, the planning commission per se. They are coming in and saying, we can do it because we've got zoning in here, and we've got a master plan that we never have followed. But we're going to do a new master plan, which is going to be down the same route as we had the ones before, but this one will change the pieces on there. So, as John Myron said, 6 times it was to have solar enhanced in the township. We didn't follow it. We'll change it so we don't have that. This gets old because you're taking away from the property owners of this township, and you have no problem with that, because you can in your positions, but you're not representing the people. You're not representing the people at all. This is a very small group that you represent, and you shouldn't be in office because you're not looking for the betterment of this community long term. You're saying, we want to take from the people instead of serving the people. And I've had a stomach full of it. We're 8 years trying to get something done that should have been done in just a couple of years. It was actually approved unanimously by the planning commission and the board, and then all dumped out because the anti-solar, anti-industrial solar people come up, and we can't have that. They wanted their cut, always their cut. Really, that's not how it works. We're a capitalistic system. It's the gentleman mentions woke and ESG and IMF, the woke in the diversity, equity, inclusion. I think this equality, socialism, and government. That's been pushed by a group out of Europe for years, and it's been adopted by a lot of corporations and whatever, and a whole lot of government agencies apparently, that Elon Musk is feathering out now, billions and billions of dollars. The International Monetary Fund has always pushed this stuff. It's a bunch of bankers, and this is how they protect themselves. But we're doing the basic thing. The woke, ESG, IMF, it's right here, concentrated in this township. When are you guys going to realize you serve us? We put you here to do the betterment for us in this township, not yours, not your little vendettas. And enough is enough. Oh, you're going to be in here. You got a 4-year term, which I don't know when that's going to start, because it was supposed to be the 20th of November, but we had to cut off the new ones on that. It's different here in Escanaba Township. But that's when it starts. There's no answers for it. No valid reasons for stopping this to take place. The contracts were very clear. The presentations are very clear. No. Yes, I'm repeating things because I'm going to continue repeating things because for some reason it doesn't penetrate. You know, I dare say that the majority of elected officials, not just here, but across this state and nation, absolutely do not know what their oath of office is. The oath of office is very clear that you're supposed to uphold the statutes of God. They're not here. God's very clear that property rights are an unalienable right. States right in the Declaration of Independence is what you swore an oath to. It's in the first paragraph. But yet you do not do that. That is your oath. But you don't know what it is. So you're going to do what you want to do and not what your been elected to do and given an oath to do. You're a disgrace to office. It's rampant. I've seen it in my position as an elected official. It was stunning how bad it is. And yet, we continue down that line, and because we don't want to learn what our foundation is, because then we would not be allowed to abuse our fellow man. That's because we'll follow our own whims. No, we have a very specific system. It tells us exactly what we're supposed to do, and yet we make the choice. No, we don't want to do that. We're going to do what our whim is right now. You know, I don't know if you have anything to say to it, because you've said a ton of it about your actions that you've done over the last 8 years, and it's time to change that. But you're still, as John reiterated there, John Myra, you take our tax dollars. We're forced to pay that, or you steal our land. We have a county land bank. It's right there willing to take it and put it on the auction block. In order to hold our property, we do that. You take our money and use it against us again and again and again. And you're not only taking away the property rights of those that want to be a part of solar, other developments, I mentioned earlier, a simple zoning change. No, we can't let you use that. The way you want to use your property doesn't have solar on it, but you can't use it that way. So you're stealing the property rights from every citizen of this township. And you think you're justifiable in that. You will stand in judgment for that. Nobody else will. Any questions?
No, I think we had enough. Thank you, Bob. Number 12, public comment.
I'd like to comment. I'm not going up there though, because I think Bob is sick and I don't want the germs. I want to remind everybody that our voice in our townships were removed in 1970 when they did a resolution. And it went throughout the whole entire country in 1970. In Michigan, Delta County was the very first one to do it. Made a resolution with the county supervisor board, and they handed our voice over to the county commissioners. And Bob, as a county commissioner, he was on that board, and he wanted to annex our entire half of our township. That was half of our township, and he didn't ask anybody to do that. I understand why you guys can't really make anybody happy on either side, actually, because you listen to an agency that continuously educate you to violate our rights. All that's going to come to a screaming halt soon. I'm assuming we're going to see some big changes with all these cuts. It's going to trickle down to our township somehow, some way, because all these grants will not be happening without the money. And then we're going to actually have to get together and talk as a township and solve some of our problems by redressing of grievances, that's what our township board is supposed to be doing. But right now, when you're not in the right form of government, it's totally impossible. And from 1970 to now, that's why we've seen such a crazy amount of things not solved, not helped. Nobody can get any help. Nobody can get answers. And our township boards are all relying on agencies that were put in place.
Thank you, Barb. Any other public comments? I remind you only have 3 minutes.
Yeah, Bob Barron again. I want to address this about the annexation, the falsehood that's put here. No one else was asked. We followed the 1851 law to the T. That predates what she's talking about, that you're not legal. that was totally legal, constitutional, set up by the state of Michigan. We followed that. We didn't ask anyone. We followed the statute of the law. We got the signatures of the people. We presented it to the County Board of Commissioners, and they turned it down because of a lot of intimidation, but that's reality, what you have to go through, called politics. But we did not go and jam anything down anybody's throat. It was wide open. It was well published for 2 weeks in our press, apparently, a full page that was out there. And I do take homage with this idea that we were trying to jam something down somebody's throat. We were acting as citizens under our Constitution, something that individuals like to say that they know something about, but come across very light in the loafers on that. No, we were following the Constitution. The people had their opportunity. It was voted down. And on so doing, that allowed the abuse of this board to continue. Had we annexed to Cornell Township, we wouldn't be having a discussion here about solar in ESCANABA Township. It would be on a county level where they got their heads together about for the good of the people. At least they did have their heads together. But we don't have that. We're hiding something from somebody. We didn't hide anything. We followed the Constitution, something you'd be well to learn about. Don't tell me that you do know what it is when your actions indicate completely otherwise. Thank you.
Any other public comments?
As far as that annexation she's talking about, at the county board meeting, I was accused of lying to people. I'm not a liar. I don't lie to people. I had a map. I showed them the map, and I told them exactly where it was and where it ended, and they had no problem signing it. But then at the county board, after I got all the signatures, I was a liar because of people in this township.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Any other public comments?
I just agree with Mr. Barron over here that we have a solar array at our house. We had it in, and things did change, even on that small little unit. So I could see where things would change on a solar farm. I can see that. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Fred Miner. I just wanted to touch on zoning a little bit, and I know my wife and I have been critical of some of the stuff that's gone on. Zoning is there to protect your property rights from the property rights of your neighbors. That's the end of where it's been. Part of why I've gotten so passionate is watching some of what's happened over the last 10 to 15 years in the township. When I first wanted to learn about zoning was with Bob Barron's racetrack, when he had put that in. There are still people on N7 lane that will not talk to each other after that. They wanted to put the racetrack in. It was zoned industrial. They were given verbal permission. They put the racetrack up. The neighbors were not happy with what was there. They felt they weren't able to, speak their concerns, have their concerns listened to, anything like that. And there's still a follow. And pretty much everything I'm talking about happened before anybody on this board was here. So this does not affect anybody. It's not pointed at anyone particular there. Our first issue we started with the township, our neighbors had wanted to turn their barn into a wedding venue. They came to the planning commission, they got a verbal okay to do that. We had no idea. We were able to bring nothing up until all of a sudden we saw an ad on Facebook that this venue was opening up. There was going to be alcohol served to 250 people up until midnight. And this facility we have a survey that shows that barn is 0.98 feet off of our property line. So we came to the planning commission, we brought that up. They shut the barn wedding venue down, but again, there was something where someone had verbal permission. They went ahead, spent an entire summer remodeling this barn, setting it up, and then it was taken away from them. And at the same time, I didn't feel that my rights were there. And we had the same thing happen again with solar. We had everybody that wanted to put the solar into place. You know, they came in, they had worked with the planning commission, went through all of this stuff, felt they went through there. It did get approved by both boards. At the end of it, it was done. They were there. From what some of the people have told me, some of them actually started liquidating some of their equipment after that because they had known what was going forward. And it was turned down because it was passed as an ordinance and not as part of the zoning ordinance. Well, when the ordinance was passed, it got published in the paper, the neighboring properties owners saw it, and they came back and said, what the heck is going on here? This is affecting our property, we didn't have a voice on it. And if we seem like we're nitpicking stuff apart, that we're going through zoning ordinance and looking at every little thing, it's because we don't want to see this happen in the township anymore. It's a dirty shame that we're this small and we have this many people in here that just won't talk to each other. And if I can be a jerk on a few lines or something here and prevent another one of these issues 10 years down the road, that's what I'm trying to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred. Any other public comments? Public comments are closed. Item number 14. Now 13, board member comments.
Mr. Supervisor, just so everybody knows, the last day to pay taxes, actually winter taxes are due on February 14th, which is this Friday, but I collect them here until February 28th. After that, they get turned over to the county treasurer, and they do charge substantially more penalties and interest if your taxes aren't paid. So if you can get them here before the 28th, that would be wonderful.
On Wednesdays, right?
I'm here on Wednesdays from 9 to 5. I do have to be here by the statute on the 28th, which is the last day to collect taxes. So I'll be here 9 to 5 on the 28th as well.
Any other board member comments?
I do. It just came up last week about voting on 2 items from being on the Planning Commission and the Township Board, and you had emailed Michigan Township Association, and I have that. That pretty much pertains to like a zoning board of appeals where they're making that decision.
Yes.
When you're on the Planning Commission, it's a recommendation to the board, and then the final decision is with the board. Plus, it's by statute that you have someone from the Township Board on the Planning Commission. So I just wanted to clarify that. In your packet, there was a paper on here with a solar appeal from Foster Swift. I was accused of not sharing it with the board, but it came out after our last board meeting, so I am sharing it. It's in your